On this episode of Three Tool Players, we talk about the worst trades and transactions of all time. The Yankees are flying high thanks to Paul Goldschmidt, who might have found the fountain of youth. No lead is safe when Jordan Romano comes into the game for the Phillies, and Pete Alonso's family might be being held hostage. All this and more on this episode of Three Tool Players. Welcome to Three Tool Players. I'm Chris Spear, and alongside me, as always, are the Hammer brothers. Brian and Dan Hammer, say hello to the internets, fellas.
Hello to the internets, fellas.
Ahoy, ahoy.
Another great week of baseball. We're all flying pretty high right now with all three of our teams. We're all on the plus side, all doing really well. But before we get to all of that, I got to thinking, what was the worst transaction in Mets history? I came up with quite a few. I'm wondering what you guys have for what's the worst transaction, whether it's a free agent signing or a trade. What's the worst transaction, do you think, in Yankees history?
Oh, we're going to start right there, huh? Put me right up to the old flank.
You know what? I'm trying to keep, I'm going to goose you early.
You go right ahead, and it's worth your gander. So there's a couple here. If we're talking monetary or if we're talking just overall potential, there's a few things. If you want to go right to the money, you got to go right to the Jacoby Ellsbury's of the world. Let's be honest. It's fun to take the toys away from Boston. We had our, quote, rivalry. But bottom line was we got ourselves a lemon after the fact. We thought we had an answer in right field. We thought we had speed and power. And this is a guy that literally it got so bad that because he went for other medical opinions outside that of the Yankees organization, we tried to void the rest of his contract. So if we're talking just money, that's the one I would lean towards. So we paid this man $153 million over 7 years. And really, he only played about 500 out of the potential close to 1,000 games. He missed pretty much all of 2018, 19, and we basically released him in 2019, and he hasn't been seen since. I don't know if he's taking that money and he's walking the earth, right?
Like Kane from Kung Fu.
I mean, maybe Jacuzzi Elber's out there. You know, maybe he's got this crazy Bruce Banner type thing where he's just walking along like roadways, hitchhiking, and just helping people along the way. I hope so, and he's doing it with Yankees money. So that's how I look at things. Now, that's the bad one. But if you're talking about trades, then we got to go way back in the Wayback Machine, back to 1982 when the DeLorean was first introduced with cocaine in the old
80s
tires. Right,
yes.
You can't go wrong with the Seagull, type doors and stuff. And of course, Doc Brown, we all love him and Marty. But this little known gem comes from somebody you might recall, Fred McGriff, future Hall of Famer.
Dog.
The crime dog.
2023 Hall of Famer.
That's right. He's going to tell you to stay off drugs, and he'll beat you with a baseball bat while doing it, scaring you into submission. But I'm going to tell you something. This is pure Yankees desperation. All right. We're talking, we were in the World Series in 81. And things aren't going so well. 82. I don't even want to talk about the Willie McGee snafu. We sent him over to the Cardinals, and immediately he starts like doing stuff. So there's something we said about some of our coaching at that time, I guess, and some of our front office. But I'll simply say this: that when you have somebody like a Fred McGriff, and he's a 17-year-old, he's batting like under $150, over a couple dozen games. It doesn't seem like that much. But the next year he starts producing instantly. But what do we get for him? It was McGriff and Mike Morgan that we shipped off. We brought in Dale Murray and Tom Dodd. Those names ring a bell to you guys?
Nope.
Thank you. Exactly. Who? What?
Who's
So
that?
these guys, listen, another thing he says, these guys got to have a cup of coffee in the show. So I can't be too overly critical. But, I mean, these are guys that barely put up numbers after the fact. Meanwhile, you got a guy like McGriff who, as we all know, he comes to the bigs in, kind of the late 80s. Again, not fast enough for what the Yankees wanted. They wanted immediate results. They wanted instant gratification. And unfortunately, it didn't go their way in this trade because McGriff really started to break out, as we all know, in the early 90s. And imagine the fact that his ascension around the time that Mattingly is starting his decline. I mean, that would have been amazing to watch. The old guard ushering the new guard, mentoring, training, etc. and it would have been amazing. Who's to say? Maybe, I don't know, 1995 would have gone a different way. Maybe Seattle doesn't beat us in game 5, right? Because we got the crime dog saying, no, no, no.
If you guys had the crime dog, then you guys would have never have had Tino Martinez, which I feel was a phenomenal first baseman. I absolutely love Tino Martinez. He
Yeah.
came over in 96, and that was the year that they won. The Yankees won.
Yes, they did. So that's my homework. That's my book report. I really hope I got good marks here. And I'm going to hand it over to Daniel Hammer to see if he's done his homework.
Oh, is it my turn right now? Am I supposed to talk here?
Well, he just handed it over to you.
Okay. All right. The one that I remember that stands out to me has to be the Adam Eaton pickup. Picking him up in 2007 for 25 million, it just did not make sense for the Phillies to pay that much for a 4th or 5th starter. It just didn't work out. I mean, like, yeah, he got a ring with the Phillies in 2008, so good for him. But does his pitching like merit him to have a ring? I don't think so, because his ERA was around like 6 in the 2 years that he pitched with the Phillies. And then, they basically traded him off to Baltimore. That alone, I feel, was the worst transaction in Philly history. There's some other ones, but that's the one that stood out to me the most.
He's got a cool name, though. Like, you can market the hell out of that. Adam Eaton what? Adam Eaton Pro over 2 years? Adam Eaton what? What's Eaton, man?
Your brain works differently. You know that, right?
Yeah.
just you're on a different wavelength from most people. My goodness.
I ate a lot of paint chips as a kid.
Woo! Good God.
And I also think of Adam and Eve. Like when I hear that guy's name, I'm sorry. Every time Dan says Adam Eaton, I'm like, Adam and Eve? Adam Eve? Is that like some kind of sexy single site? Like,
Put your head down. Put your head down on your desk and let Dan finish up.
All right, I'm gonna do this. Go ahead. Heads down. Go ahead, Daniel. You're doing terrific.
Now, if we're talking about trades, there's a lot of them that like the Phillies just like blew up. We can talk about the Kurt Schilling. We can talk about Scott Rowland going to the Cardinals. But the biggest one that stood out is the Larry Boa trade to the Cubs. Now, Larry Boa was basically the heart of Philly. He was shortstop. He was getting older. He was 36 years old. He wanted to have, I think it was like a 2 or 3 year extension. He wanted to retire as a Philadelphia Philly. But upper management didn't want to pay him that money. They wanted to bring in younger legs. And with that trade for Larry Boa, they were like, you know what? Let's throw a young guy in there too, because you know what? We don't really need anyone for second base. We have Manny Trillo. So how about we just throw in a young Ryan Sandberg with Larry Boa
I know. That's
to go
crazy.
over to the Cubs?
That's crazy.
So this one was basically the icing on the cake. It was Larry Boa for shortstop Ivan DeJesus. Now, if you take a look at DeJesus's batting average, it was probably around like a 250 batting average for the 2 years that he was with the Phillies, and they shipped them off. You trade away Larry Boa, that was basically to this day kind of like how Kyle Schwarber is like the voice, the heart of Philly, or even like, we can't really say Bryce Harper. You can say Kyle Schwarber is the heart of Philly. If he leaves, it's just going to take away that feeling of the team that we have today. That's basically what that was back in the 1980s. In the early 80s, Larry Boa was basically the voice of the Phillies, and his name and image resonated with the fan base. It started a downturn for them because you also think about Ryan Sandberg. He was the 20th round pick.
Wait, what's his name?
1978.
Wait, what's his name?
Ryan Sandberg.
Ryan Sandberg or Ryan Sandberg?
Shut up.
No, I'm asking the question. Is it Ryan Sandberg? Because I bet this guy runs into all kinds of issues growing up. He's probably been in many of fist fights. My name's not Ryan. It's Ryan.
It's Ryan.
Ryan Stone.
I'm going to start calling you Brain from now on.
You might as well. That's exactly what my high school yearbook did senior year, bastards. We got spell check, don't we? Of course you do, because Brain doesn't show up. But thanks for being Brain Hammer.
But I think that's the point, though, is they missed, right? It wasn't that they're trying to save money or they're shipping Boa out in the twilight of his careers. They missed badly on Ryan Sandberg.
Did you say Ryan or Ryan?
Ryan.
Rain. Rain
Ryan
Wilson.
Sandberg. They missed terribly.
Yeah, and the thing is, it was the scouts that were saying, "Oh, he's not going to be big." And lo and behold, in 1984, he wins the NL MVP, wins like 8 or 9 Gold Gloves, and makes 10 All-Stars.
And he's a Virgo.
That's a value add by you.
Mhm.
That's a good job by you. It's value add.
How about you,
Uh,
Mr. Spear? What about you?
oh
What's
my.
tell us your
Plenty.
tale of woe, sir.
Plenty of awful trades and or signings in Mets history.
Can you
Honorable
condense it down for us and the listening folks out there?
honorable mentions include Lenny Dykstra and Roger McDowell for Juan Samuel. Lenny was an up-and-coming center fielder for the Mets. He was platooning with Mookie Wilson, did not like it. He ended up being a perfect fit for the city of Philadelphia. Nails was the guy's nickname. McDowell went on to have a very successful career as a closer as he bounced around a little bit. And Juan Samuel was hot garbage. Signing Vince Coleman, a divisive player who blew up the team's fan base, literally blew it up when he threw a firecracker at fans in Los Angeles and was charged with a felony.
Oh my God.
We traded PCA for Javi Baez. PCA is going to be a star for the Cubs. Javi Baez played like hot garbage for the Mets, and then when surprised, the New York fans booed him. He responded by mocking them with a thumbs down salute, which ran him right out of town. Bobby Bonilla Day. I'm reminded of this every July 1st. The Mets will be paying Bobby Bonilla every July 1st more than $1 million with interest until 2035. He'll be in his 70s. That's more than some current players are making in a season right now. Gunnar Henderson and Ellie Dela Cruz make less than that right now this second. And for the record, this isn't like Ohtani when they were deferring salaries. This was a buyout of Bonilla's $5.9 million contract because he was terrible after they brought him back in a trade in 1999. And he went ahead and batted 160 with 6 home runs in 60 games. Now, keep that in mind. They were going to pay him out $5.9 million with 8% interest. And the idea was that they were going to invest the money into an annuity needed to pay out Bonilla over that time. The problem was that the investor's name was Bernie Madoff.
This is going great.
Hang on, it gets worse.
How can it get worse?
I asked my dad this question just this past weekend, and he thought for a minute, and he came up with this. In 1971, the Mets traded for a third baseman named Jim Fregosi. And I said, Dad, do you remember who they traded for Fregosi? Nolan Ryan.
Oh my God.
He sat up straight. He sat up straight in his chair. He goes, that's right. That's why I remember that bum. Nolan Ryan. In what is probably one of the most lopsided trades in history, Jim Fregosi was traded straight up for Nolan Ryan and prospects. Ryan wasn't quite the express yet, but he was 24, and he did help the Mets win the series in 69 as he was coming out of the bullpen most of the time. Mm-hmm. On top of that, he was never really comfortable in New York, and the Mets needed to stop the revolving door at third base. And although he was a shortstop, they thought Fregosi was going to be the answer. He wasn't. He played 146 games for the Mets and was traded for a player to be named later in 1973. And I don't need to tell you what happened to Nolan Ryan, but I will. 324 wins, 138 as an Angel, 5,714 strikeouts, 2,400 of which was as an Angel, 7 no-hitters, 4 as an Angel, 2 ERA titles, 11 strikeout crowns, 6 300K seasons, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Oh, you beat me right to it. I was going to say the same damn thing.
I was going to say no one's going to ever, accumulate those type of numbers as a pitcher in this modern day. I mean, you take a look. I mean, like he's pitching 35 to 40 start games every single year. I mean, like that was basically the quintessential Iron Man of pitching. He was a Cy Young of this era.
That's right. That's right. And what would have happened if Nolan Ryan stayed a Met is one of the most fascinating questions for Met fans through the years. Any top 10 list of the most lopsided trades in Major League history usually includes this trade, but it's not the worst one for Met fans. It had been called the Midnight Massacre. On June 15th, 1977, Tom Seaver was traded to the Cincinnati Reds for 4 players not named Tom Seaver. Seaver had gotten into a nasty war of words with M. Donald Grant, who was the Mets president at that time, over money. Grant was a notorious penny pincher, and Seaver wanted the Mets to invest in more offensive weapons to compete in the National League. He was furious when the Mets didn't go after Gary Matthews in 76, and Seaver said to the press, how could they not even try? In spring of 77, although he had just signed a contract 2 years prior, Seaver had seen many of his peers as a result of a new collective bargaining agreement. He saw a lot of his peers, including his old buddy, Nolan Ryan, out in California, start getting big raises. So Seaver started negotiating a new deal directly with ownership, bypassing Grant and stirring the pot even more. The war between Seaver and Grant escalated in the press with a beat writer for the Daily News called Dick Young, who had sided with Grant. And he wrote a nasty piece in which he suggested that it was Seaver's wife that wanted him to go back and ask for more money. Seaver lost his mind, saw it, and although a new deal was nearly completed with the top brass, with the ownership, he called and said, "Get me out of here." The Mets traded him a few days later. And it's really hard to put into words what this did to the fan base. Keep in mind, this was still a young team. It was only a 15-year-old team, an expansion franchise that started in 1962. In 1977, Tom Seaver was already a legend and the most successful player in the team's brief 15-year history. He was known as the franchise and was one of baseball's top pitchers. He was already probably destined for the Hall of Fame, having won Rookie of the Year in 1967, 3 Cy Young Awards in 69, 73, and 75, and he led the team to the World Series in 1969. He was credited in part for giving the Mets life early in their existence. Met fans were furious. Some cried when they were watching Seaver's press conference announcing the trade. Grant was run out of town a year later. He swore off the Mets and Tom Seaver. Dick Young, the journalist, was booed at his own induction to the Writers' Hall of Fame. Some wounds eventually healed. Seaver went into the Hall of Fame in 1992 as a Met, where he remains only one of 2 players who have been enshrined as a Met. The other is Mike Piazza. And in 2022, 2 years after his passing, a statue commemorating Seaver was installed at the front of Citi Field with Seaver's family in attendance. Citi Field's official address is now 41 Seaver Way. But still, the Midnight Massacre is a seminal moment in Mets history, and it is one of the worst things ever to happen to the franchise.
Let me say something to you, Spirit. You have all the pain. It's clear that you have history upon history of it.
The thing about the Met fan, Brian, is that there's institutional pain. That's why we can tell these stories, because they run deeply inside Met fandom. So some of it is you just have to get it out off your chest because it hurts. It hurts.
So I imagine there's all kinds of 800 numbers kind of littered throughout Citi Field about, have you experienced this pain? Please, we have therapists,
trauma specialists, toll-free numbers, right? Trauma specialists are standing by. Right. Yes.
It's all in the ticket stubs right there in the fine print, where they say, don't go gamble. If you have a gambling addiction, go here. But if you have deep-seated issues with Mets history and outcomes, et cetera, please call this number and somebody will be standing by to help you.
Yeah, I'm told that all of the suites come with a certificate for several sessions of free therapy.
Fantastic.
That Nolan Ryan trade ends up on most lists of the worst trades in Major League history. I have one that I know you guys know it, but can you think of any other horrible trades in all around Major League history? Horrible trades.
Absolutely. And since we're in the heart of New York here, I'll just simply say Native Americans and Manhattan.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
And that trade for that.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
Thank you.
Trades. Baseball trades, you dummy.
Sorry. You said trades.
Baseball
you know what?
Trades.
It reminds me of what I used to do to Little Hammer when he was a little kid, right? I used to roll up there with a nickel and be like, look, this is bigger than that dime. Why don't you hand me that small little dime that ain't worth anything? He's like, okay, I'll do this for you. And I was just counting dimes left and right. So, Dan, if you want to pull compounding interest and everything along those lines, I'll Venmo you $78. All right. Sorry, buddy.
He's had already done the calculation on how much he's cheated you out in your life.
Yeah.
He's not even mad about it. He's like, yeah.
Yep. So all-time worst baseball trades. What do you guys got?
That's tough.
Well, how about this one? Because there's one guy who's been involved in two of probably the worst trades of all time, and his name is Randy Johnson.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
hmm
yeah.
Randy Johnson has been involved in not one but two horrible trades.
It was one to the Diamondbacks, and I forget what the other one was.
The Expos to the Mariners. Randy Johnson was
Yes.
traded to the Mariners for Mark Langston and Mike Campbell. And in another big what if, right?
Yeah.
If the Montreal Expos held on to Randy Johnson, and I might add, if they had held on to Pedro Martinez, would we still be playing baseball in Montreal?
I think we
No, because they
would.
still put mayonnaise on their French fries. It was eventually going to fall
It was all going to fall
terribly.
apart just because
It
of
was already, yeah.
the
Yeah, but
mayonnaise
you know
and the
what?
French fries
I
thing.
was gonna say, but they do have like the all dressing chips, which is pretty darn good.
So how about this one? Seattle traded Randy Johnson to the Astros and got
Mhm.
back a boatload of players. An absolute haul. They got back Freddie Garcia, Carlos Guillen, John Halama. Freddie Garcia went on to have a good career. Carlos Guillen went on to have a good career.
Uh-huh.
Randy Johnson was with the Astros for, I mean, he went 10-1, and then they lost in the playoffs. And then right after that, he went on to the Diamondbacks.
What year was that exactly?
It was 98.
'98.
He was only there for
98.
a hot minute. Yeah,
All right.
they
All right.
basically needed him for the playoffs,
They
and
rented
then
him.
They rented him. Okay.
you know what
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of CC Sabathia going to the Brewers, and the Brewers basically using him as just a freaking dog in like, all the series. Even if you take a look at like, how much that he pitched in the playoffs for the Brewers, they used him up until like he couldn't pitch anymore. And then of course the Yankees signed him next year.
We signed him next year and we won the World Series that year.
A couple more awful trades. The Tigers traded John Smoltz to the Braves for someone named Doyle Alexander, who I don't know. The
Sure,
the Red Sox let Jeff Bagwell go
Oh
to the
yeah.
Astros for I mean and you have to remember too, Jeff Bagwell was like a born and braised.
Well, he was braised. He tastes delicious. Keep going.
Bagwell was like a born and raised New Englander. He went to the University of Hartford. Like he was ready to play for the Red Sox, and they traded him to the Astros, where he just went on to win the Rookie of the Year and the MVP. No big.
Eh.
But the all-time worst trade, and this is non-negotiable. The all-time worst trade in baseball history is the Red Sox trade Babe Ruth to the Yankees for cash and a bag of balls. I mean, this is like
Don't forget a pack of Lucky Strikes too.
there's nothing. There's nothing that tops that.
The curse of the Bambino. We all know this. All right.
Mhm.
We've been around. If anybody's ever, set foot in Yankee Stadium, they've heard whispers of this curse. And it took them 86 years to finally break it.
And you know what's
Right.
funny about that too?
I don't find anything funny
6
about it, Daniel.
years.
I wanted the curse to keep going. I mean, it's such a great story.
But
Right.
what's
And now they're all uppity Sox fans. Anytime they win, it's like, yeah, bro, look at us. We're all happy and go Chowder.
But I want to say what's really weird about numbers. It's the Red Sox were in the World Series with the New York Mets in 1986.
Remember that,
Right.
Spear? Remember
You
that
remember
happening?
that, Spear?
It was a
I
great
was
time
there.
for you. You
I
were
was
there?
there.
That
I
was
was there.
That was
You
a
were
good
physically
year
there.
for the Mets.
I was.
Wow. That's really cool.
So they lose the series in 86. But then 18 years later, 1918, 18 years later, they win the World Series in 2004, which is also 86 years. Guys find
Dan,
that
you
weird
wanna-
or what?
Mind blown.
Wow. You want to play
Boom.
some more
Boom.
conspiracy theories there, Little Hammer? All right. When was the last time the Red Sox won the World Series? 2018. Have they
Oh.
won since? No. Are they going to win again in the year 2104? Probably. Hopefully it's not against the Yankees.
But hey,
But
I'm just
good
saying
for them.
numbers is
Right?
it's just an insane thing because you think
Listen.
about it. They had the World Series bid in 1986, but the Mets beat them. But then 18 years later, 1918, it's weird how those numbers work. All right, I'm gonna go
Math.
back to my Sudoku now. All right.
You enjoy
Math.
yourself there.
Math.
Math is good.
Hey, as long as you're flying high over there, Mr. Brian Hammer, the Bombers are bombing
No,
again.
whoa. Let's stop right there. Mr.
here we
Hammer. Mr. Hammer is my father. Please. Call me Professor Hammer.
Oh, Professor then. Professor Hammer.
What a jackass.
How are the Bombers
How are
doing over
we
there,
doing?
Professor
Let
Hammer?
me say something. A week is amazing, right? About this time last week, you were like, "Oh, are you worried? Oh, look out. You lost a bunch of games." And you know what? Listen, we're at the top of the AL East. We went 7-3 in our last 10 games, even though we just dropped a game tonight as we're recording this on a Monday night to the Guardians. Unfortunately, our bats didn't start working until the eighth inning. There were some pros and some definite cons. All right, so we'll start with the pros. Our bullpen, for the most part, lights out, unless your name is Devin. All right, and that's another story. Very proud of our bullpen being able to nail things down. Max Fried has stepped up to be the ace of this squad now that Garrett is down for the better part of a year, year and a half, coming
He's
back.
4-0. He hasn't lost.
Hasn't lost, right? So he's been giving us some great starts. Rodon finally turned in a decent start this week after two clunkers. So, some of the pitching is looking good. Clark Schmidt has come back, and he's still been a little shaky. Tonight he took the loss, but we need arms. We need people to also eat up innings. Our bats, on the other hand, have been doing great. Not like that first weekend where we saw a barrage of home runs, but still enough to say, hey, look, we're keeping things competitive. So I'm very encouraged by this week. What's been fun, though, is, Toronto's been kind of hanging around too. But all told, we still have the best record in the American League. So I'm really excited about what comes next with our team. And I will say this: we've got some Paul Goldschmidt renaissance happening here. All right, this is a guy. He's just absolutely mashing right now. This guy cannot miss the ball. He's been phenomenal there. Judge, we all know Judge is very good at baseball.
Aaron Judge is very good at baseball.
Aaron Judge is very good at baseball.
Yeah, I think you're right about Paul Goldschmidt finding the fountain of youth. We said early on that the production for Juan Soto needed to be reproduced somehow, and it's been Paul Goldschmidt who's been doing it. Maybe not so much with power. He only has the one home run so far this season, but he's batting like 370, and he's hitting the ball all over the place. So that's what you need. Aaron Judge will hit the big fly, but you got to get people on base and you got to drive and runs, and that's what he's been doing. So we got to give credit where credit's due. Paul Goldschmidt's been a big bat for the Bombers early. Maybe not so much for power. Maybe the power comes later, but he's definitely carrying it from an average perspective and on base.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably like, when the weather warms up, then Goldschmidt's old bones are going to warm up a little bit too, and then he's going to hit the ball longer. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's
Yeah,
that the old age is getting to him. He's just slapping the ball here and there. But I'll tell you what, he kind of reminds me of Nelson Cruz.
Hmm.
You think about it, you take a
Interesting.
look at Nelson Cruz's numbers, like when he was in like, his later years, he was putting up like 270, 280 batting average with 30 to 40 home runs. It's just like it doesn't seem like Goldschmidt is slowing down. Because you think about it, he won MVP like 3 years ago. 3 years ago at age 34.
So let's keep you right there for a second, Dan. Where do you think you are with the week that was for the Philadelphia Phillies?
The week for the Phillies, it was a decent week. We split with the Giants, and Giants were one of the, top teams in baseball right now. So I'll take that. And I actually was able to get out to the game on Friday night. So I was happy to go see Wheeler versus Alcantara. Now,
Mm.
you take a look at, like, the stat line that the Phillies have against Sandy, and it's abysmal for Sandy. Whenever we're playing Sandy Alcantara, it just seems like our bats wake up and we jump on him early. And that's basically what happened on Friday night too. We had a 2-run homer off of Hoppe, and Schwarber hit a Schwar bomb as well. And fun game, 7-2. It was just an easy win for us. Wheeler still doesn't look like the Zach Wheeler that we know. He's been giving up runs every game. He hasn't really been lighting up the world. He did have 13 strikeouts on Friday, which was great, but he's like, some of his pitches are getting away. Now, talking about Saturday when we were walloping on the Marlins early and often, actually throughout that whole game. And then all of a sudden, we have a pitcher in the name of Jordan Romano coming in and leaving everything up, even though you see in his press conference afterwards saying that he felt good. He went out there with a game plan and he was hitting his spots, but they were just hitting him hard. Like, okay, so maybe you should pick out other spots instead of the spots that you were picking.
don't
I don't
don't pick
know.
those spots. Pitch to other spots.
Maybe not. Maybe don't pick those spots because the Marlins were hitting those spots. I'm like, you're going up against a team that is a sub 500 team, and they've been a sub 500 team for years, and you're basically giving meatballs to guys that are not on the same caliber as you. It's alarming to take a look at his ERA being 15 plus. And every time that he comes out, it's kind of like, Sir Anthony Dominguez type of feel. Like you're clutching. You're like, are we going to have a good one or are we going to have a bad Sir Anthony? That's kind of like what Jordan Romano is for us right now.
But it's not an isolated incident, Dan.
No, it's not.
He's been bad now for multiple outings, and he's been getting hit hard.
When we were watching the game a couple weeks ago, I was going back and forth with you on text, throwing texts back and forth, saying like, this guy is leaving everything up. Everything was out of the strike zone, or when he was getting a strike, it was a high strike. It was belt level where people could feast on it.
Yeah, no lead is safe, and that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we saved the best for last, and that's my beloved Metropolitans, who have the best record out of all three of our teams for the first time all season. So I'm going to take an opportunity to crow a little bit. I haven't had this opportunity yet, so I'm going to do so. The team right now is being carried on the very big shoulders of the polar bear, Pete Alonso, who is playing out of his damn fool mind right now. Pete is batting .346 with 6 home runs and 24 RBIs. He's got a 1.171 OPS. He is out of his Gordon. There's two really important things about how Pete Alonso is playing right now. Number one, if Pete was doing this for any other team on the planet, if the Mets didn't sign him to this short-term 2-year deal with the 1-year player opt-out, and he was doing this for any other team, Met fans everywhere would be apoplectic by now. To watch their homegrown son go off to some other place and hit like this, Met fans would be out of their damn fool minds. They would be burning down Flushing, Queens right now. And number two is Pete doing what Pete is doing right now is helping keep the volume down on everyone complaining about Juan Soto. Now, for the record, Soto is batting .256 with 3 home runs and 12 RBIs in the first month of baseball. I'm pretty sure that 85 to 90% of Major League Baseball would take those numbers. But because he's Juan Soto and because he got paid $750 something million,
60.
700, it was 755, right?
760.
Whatever. He got paid a lot of money. That even my mom turned around and said, well, he's not hitting enough home runs. This is what I swear to God. He's not hitting enough home runs. He's not hitting enough home runs.
He's not doing enough push-ups. We shouldn't have given him all that money. He's a bum.
Shouldn't have given him the money.
Oh.
My God. So this is what Met fans are doing, and it's a damn good thing that Pete's doing what he's doing. Otherwise, the noise around Juan Soto not being Juan Soto would be a lot louder.
It's interesting to just really kind of bask if you're Pete Alonso at this point, right? I mean, he's playing like a guy whose family is being held hostage somewhere in some third world country. And if he doesn't produce over 333 batting average with all sorts of power and OPS, folks lose like toes and fingers and stuff in the mail.
I feel like Pete Alonso is basically playing like a Jerry Maguire, show me the money type of contract right now.
That's right.
That's what he's doing.
That's right. This is the Pete Alonso that we expected to get last year when he was in his walk year, in the prove it year. This was the Pete Alonso that we expected to see. And for whatever reason, we didn't get it. This year, I guess he's got the certainty. He's got the contract for 2 years. He's got the option. So he's freewheeling it right now. He's just playing baseball. I mean, he's running the bases. If you watched him leg out a triple the other day, it was the funniest thing you've ever seen. He was like Tom Cruise running. It was really funny, but he's playing really hard baseball right now, and you got to love what he's doing for this team.
You know what he's doing? He's playing angry. From the offseason of no teams going for him, he is playing angry. I think he's just an angry man right now, and he's wreaking havoc on that baseball.
No,
I
that's
don't.
not what's happening. I'm going to tell you exactly what's happening. The people that are holding his family hostage in that third world country,
Shut your mouth. Stop.
I've been told it's a shell company run from Scott Boras. Scott Boras is orchestrating all of this.
That's right. Scott Boras wants to get his own money. Okay,
That's
so
right.
he's doing this.
He
You
knows
know
how
what
to
it
do
is?
it.
It's if you remember, Aaron Judge went to the Yankees and said, "I want the big contract." Cashman said, "No."
Show me.
He's like, "Show me." Aaron Judge went out and hit 60 something home runs.
62 home runs. He broke the record.
So I think that's what Alonso is doing here in a way. He's saying, "Oh, you didn't want to pay me? Oh, you made me hang? Oh, you made me feel like there wasn't a market for me? I'll show you where the market is for me." And by the end of this, you're right, I don't think he's going to bat 350 all year. But if he finishes the season, he's batted 280 with
Mhm.
40 something home runs and 150 RBIs. Pete Alonso is going to get paid. He's going to
Payday.
get the bag.
Yep.
He's
Yeah,
going to get it.
he is going to say, you know what? I need to opt out of this second season
That's right.
and
Hmm.
see what the market is now for me. So if he does bat 280 with 40 plus home runs, 150 RBI, yeah, people are going to come. People are going to pay.
So I hope that Pete gets the bag. I hope that our listeners enjoyed this episode, and I hope they check us out on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you smash those subscribe or those follow buttons, and you can find us on the TikToks at Three Tool Players, and you can find us on X.com at Three Tool Pod. For Brian and Dan Hammer, I'm Chris Spear, and we thank you for listening to this episode of Three Tool Players.